Hi. So we're going to continue on, and now we're going to be talking about taboo tainting, which to a large degree kind of goes along with the euphemism treadmill that we just talked about. The idea here is that taboo words can taint non-taboo words if they're too close in pronunciation. So, for example, we saw this with ass meaning butt, tainted ass meaning donkey, and in fact we had to invent this word donkey, which originally came from this dun monkey, a gray monkey, dun meaning gray. I guess it was somebody's idea of a joke that a donkey, an ass, was a gray monkey, but it stuck. And so now we have this word donkey, at least in the United States. Not so much in Great Britain or Australia, where ass never really got tainted so much. But in the United States, most of us are kind of uncomfortable referring to the animal as an ass. Cock, meaning penis, certainly tainted cock, meaning rooster. And in fact, again, we had to invent this word rooster, one who roosts, basically. And that part of it is kind of understandable, but I promised I'd explain a little bit more about the background of cock and how that was a euphemism. Well, it's kind of a strange one, because as a metaphor, it seems weird, right? It's kind of hard to see how a male chicken should remind somebody of the male genitalia on a human. Well, it's more convoluted than that, as it turns out. That the way it worked was, at some point in history, probably the Middle Ages, there was a faucet, right? Basically a water pipe. And we still have that word cock today that refers to a valve in plumbing. So plumbers still use cock. They use the word stopcock sometimes. So originally, we somehow saw this thing on a pipe, and it somehow reminded people of a male chicken. And so they started referring to this particular faucet, this particular valve, as a cock. Now, nobody, as far as I can tell, knows exactly what this original type of faucet, this original type of valve looked like, except that it apparently was enough to remind people of a chicken. And so you also see this in France, that the same faucet was referred to as a coq. And so there you have it. Now, from there, it's not hard to see how people started thinking of a particular pipe, right, a bit of plumbing, as resembling a penis. There, the metaphor seems kind of straightforward. So as long as you go from the male chicken to some valve, and then the valve to a pipe, people start thinking of penises then, and we still have then valves in plumbing being referred to as cocks, but we then also got penises referred to as cocks euphemistically, and then over time that became a dysphemism on its own, tainting the original cock meaning rooster, and then we needed to find a new word for male chicken. Pussy. Talked about this one a little bit, that it's not a hard metaphor to see, but it tainted pussy meaning cat to some degree, and people can still say pussycat. That seems okay, but other uses of pussy people seem to avoid. So, for example, this old expression pussyfooting seems to be falling out of favor because people think of it as somehow being associated with pussy vagina instead of pussy cat. Such that once I used it and somebody accused me of being sexist for using it, and I was like, what? How is that sexist? Well, they understood it differently than I did. Which is what happens, right? Is that people make these associations because we don't have direct access to the history of words. And so we sometimes think that words are related when they're not. And so this happened, for example, with niggardly, which historically has no relationship to nigger, but people think it does because they sound similar. And it actually led to this guy, David Howard. He was an employee of the mayor's office in Washington, D.C., and at a budget meeting, he referred to the budget as being niggardly, and some people who were in the meeting objected and thought it was racist for him to say that, and he ultimately resigned over it. The follow-up on that is that he was actually rehired later for a different position within the mayor's office because some people thought it was ridiculous that he should have to resign over having used this word that bears no relationship to nigger. But Howard himself actually said that he thinks it was wrong of himself to have used the word, that he thinks that he should not have used it. They said, it doesn't matter that he knows that they're not related. If it makes people uncomfortable, then you shouldn't use it. And that's kind of what it comes down to, is out of politeness, we don't use words that have been tainted by other words. Bunny is an interesting one, because it wasn't always pronounced that way. This was actually an attempt to sort of save the word. We had to change its pronunciation. So, if you've read the book, you already know the origins, but the original pronunciation was not bunny. It was actually originally pronounced with a k. And we find that on this place outside of New York, Coney Island, is what we call it today, but it wasn't originally pronounced Coney Island. In fact, it was originally pronounced Coney Island. We have a few words with that O-N-E-Y, like honey and money, that are pronounced unny, like that, and that's how Coney was originally pronounced, and it meant rabbit, bunny. Presumably the island originally had a lot of rabbits on it, and so they called it Coney Island. That one was saved because people started repronouncing it as Coney, and so it was okay. But for the little animal, we had to find another pronunciation. We substituted the k for k, for b, the k sound for b, and what we get is the modern bunny. I'm getting ahead of my slides here, but the reason why we had to change it is because there was another word that was also pronounced cunny, at least by some people. And the word was cunt. So there was an alternative pronunciation of cunt, which was cunny. Enough people knew that they started feeling uncomfortable calling that little animal a cunny. And so they had to find another pronunciation, namely bunny. People also have the same thing, that originally the planet was called Uranus. That's the standard pronunciation, or the original pronunciation. But a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, especially high school physics teachers or science teachers are not so comfortable saying Uranus, because all the students snicker and think that he's saying your anus. And so many times people will find an alternative pronunciation and call it Uranus. In some parts of colloquial Mexico, you no longer use the word huevo, because huevo also means testicle, and that's actually fairly common in a lot of languages. Egg and testicle get associated, and egg gets used euphemistically as a substitute for testicle. But what happened in Mexico, in Mexican Spanish, is that huevo became so uncomfortable to use that they had to invent a new word, blanquillo, small white thing. You see this in Latin American Spanish with pájaro, which pájaro, and sorry for my Spanish pronunciation, but pájaro meant bird, but it came to mean penis obscenely, and so then you could no longer call birds pájaro. You had to invent this other word, pajarito, and that then became the new word for bird. This even went into this languages, Kaqchikel and Quiche, Mayan languages spoken in Guatemala, where the native term tzikin became obscene due to the Spanish influence, and so they had to find another word. Chicop, small animal, and chicop is now their word for both small animal and bird, and tzikin only gets used to refer to penises. In Paraguay and Argentina, you've got this language chulupi, which has this word puta, which means rabbit, and in that language, just simply meant rabbit. However, there is this word in Spanish, puta, and most people who speak chulupi are bilingual, and so they know that puta is a bad word, meaning whore, and so they no longer felt comfortable saying puta, meaning rabbit, and they had to invent a new word, nanhatetach, rabbit, meaning, taken from the word for hair, nanhate, and then tach means similar to. So similar to hair is a rabbit, because puta, which was the original word for rabbit, is too close to this word in Spanish. So you can see the tainting can even happen across languages. And then our final example is going to be bloody, which I think most Americans are aware is a moderately taboo word in England. And because of that, you would not say bloody nose, as we would in the United States. So if our nose is bleeding, we say that we have a bloody nose. I say, I got a bloody nose. But you wouldn't say that in England. Instead, you would say, I have a bleeding nose, or I have a blood nose. But you would never say bloody nose, because that would sound weird, a little bit taboo.